This episode is sponsored by Shipyard Shenanigans, available now on YouTube and on all good podcasting apps. Hello and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 62, 30 Ways to Combat Stress. Well, the episodes have been coming thick and fast this last 2 weeks, but this is the last in that rapid-fire series that I have been releasing in response to the COVID-19 situation that we're having worldwide at the moment. But if you're listening to this in the brighter and better future, which I believe we will be enjoying sometime soon, this show is very much back on track and very much another one of my evergreen shows that reflect everyday life and work. Now, in the last episode, I discussed freelance anxieties and money woes, amongst other things, with productivity expert and professional trainer of freelancers, David Owen Thomas of David Thomas Media, who was just filled with incredible advice. And if you missed that one, then please check back and give it a listen. David was an incredible guest, and his wisdom and positive energy make it a very valuable show indeed. Today, though, we are looking at something which I've been no stranger to myself over the last few years, and it's something that I suffer with still from time to time. Now, largely I have it covered, but I can't deny that stress and anxiety are two things that time and again become unwelcome guests at my table. William James said, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. And if only it were so simple, eh? Stress, which is defined as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances, and its close cousin, incidentally, anxiety, a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome, are not things that are so easily wished away." Stress is both an emotional and a physical effect on us, and it's something that all of us humans just have to face up to at some point in our lives. It can come from experiences that make you angry or frustrated in particular, or disappointed, pressured, tired or nervous. And symptoms include tiredness, insomnia, headaches, chest pain, muscle pain. I'm not talking about COVID-19 here, by the way, but these are all things that happen. Appetite changes and poor sex drive is another couple of things. It also lowers the responses of the immune system as hormones are released as part of the body's response, and that's why sometimes when you're stressed out you can maybe catch a cold and things as well. I think your defences just start to drop. I try to take it one day at a time, but sometimes several days attack me at once. Ashley Brilliant, unquote. Now, I got really lucky when I was researching this episode because the Mental Health Foundation did a study of stress in 2018, and it's the largest known study of stress levels in the UK. And I've got a whole load of figures from that study that I want to share with you. So let me just go through a number of facts and figures. In the past year, 74% of people have felt so stressed that they have been overwhelmed or unable to cope. I think we can believe that. 30% of older people reported never feeling overwhelmed or unable to cope in the past year, compared to 7% of young adults. Interesting. 46% reported that they ate too much or ate unhealthily due to stress. That's 2 episodes ago. That's comfort eating. 29% said they'd started drinking or increased their drinking, and 16% reported that they had started smoking or increased their smoking. Also, this study gives some statistics on the psychological effects of stress. 51% of adults who felt stressed reported feeling depressed, and 61% reported feeling anxious. Of the people who said that they had felt stress at some point in their lives, 16% had self-harmed, and 32% said that they had suicidal thoughts and feelings. 37% of adults who reported feeling stressed also reported feeling lonely as a result. Now, finally, the study lists, it's got loads of stuff, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but it lists these stats in relation to the causes of stress. 36% of all adults who reported stress in the previous year cited either their own or a friend's relative long-term health condition as a factor. And this rose to 44% of adults over 55. Of those who reported feeling stressed in the past year, 22% cited debt as a stressor. And I talk about debt in season 3 as part of the Law of Success in 16 lessons. And there's a chapter of that talks about the slavery of debt. And it's a brilliant description. It is a slavery. Like many addictions, you're a slave to debt. If you've got a problem in that area, go back and have a listen, or check out the website of David Thomas, who I talked to in the last episode, because he actually does sessions on finance, and that might be of interest to you. 49% of 18 to 24-year-olds who have experienced high levels of stress felt that comparing themselves to others was a source of stress, which was higher than in the older age groups. And I think we all know that that's because of social networking, social media, and possibly the press as well. Always remember that thing about social media is that you're seeing the highlight reel of other people's lives. They're not posting pictures of themselves when they're looking dodgy. Well, some people do, but largely if you're looking at people and thinking you're not doing as well as them, or you're not as good as them, or good as them, or you're not as worthy as them, remember, they're only showing you the good bits of their life, so don't get brought down by that. Just try and get that high-level thinking in there and take control. Now, 36% of women who felt high levels of stress related this to their comfort with their appearance and body image, compared to 23% of men. Housing worries are a key source of stress for younger people, with 32% of 18 to 24-year-olds who cited it as a source of stress in the past year. This is less so for older people, only 22% of 45 to 54-year-olds, and just 7% of over 55s. That's housing worries. And finally on this list, I've just chosen some of these facts. There's an awful lot more, but younger people have higher stress related to the pressure to succeed. 60% of 18 to 24-year-olds and 41% of 25 to 34-year-olds cited this, compared to 17% of 45 to 54-year-olds and only 6% of over 55s. Speaking as someone who's I'm 48, I'll just find out that, at least I think I am, guys. I'm not that old, but like sometimes I do forget what age I am. I just admit it. I like to share when I'm on this podcast, but success is what this show is about, and it's not that I don't want to be successful anymore, it's just that I don't worry about being successful as much, and really this productivity show has helped me to focus that down as well. I see steps towards reaching success rather than forever aiming for the high point first. I just slowly work my way towards it in whatever I'm doing. I try and problem solve as I go along, but I can say don't worry all you like, but will it make you worry less? I doubt it. But later on in this show, I'm going to be talking about some things you can do, 30 of them, as you got from the title, that will help you out if you are feeling stressed. And as I said a minute ago, I'll link to that study in the show notes, and the full show notes will be shown on the official website, filmproproductivity.com. If you go to the show notes that accompany the podcast apps, I only now put a cut down version of the show notes on that, because these apps, particularly Apple, who are garbage, they were actually just cutting them off. They had like a word limit on it, which, you know, is a bit of a bummer when you try to give a full transcript, which I try to do in many episodes. But if you want the full show notes with all the links guaranteed, go to filmproproductivity.com. This episode will be sitting right in front of you, and you just need to click it and you'll get the full information. You don't know what people are really like until they're under a lot of stress. Tim Allen, unquote. People with high levels of stress will likely have a quicker trigger for frustration or become irritable much more easily, and it can lead to life-altering conditions such as high blood pressure, headaches, stomach ulcers, chronic insomnia, obesity, and diabetes. It can also cause abnormal physical behaviours such as abusive tobacco, drugs, or alcohol, and sometimes stress can cause issues, as I mentioned the other day there, with overeating. These are the common physical effects that stress has on us. I talked about this the other day in, I think it was the anxiety episode. So it's much the same thing we're talking about here. And everybody is different when it comes to stress and how they react to it. But when you're in a stressful situation, it can cause an increase in the level of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol within our bodies. The physical symptoms of fight or flight are what the human body has learned over thousands of years to operate efficiently and at the highest level. Anxiety is a cognitive interpretation of that physical response. John Eliot, unquote. And while I'm on that quote, for me, stress comes from worry about where I am now and things that I am immediately dealing with. Anxiety is similar, but it comes from worry about tomorrow or the future, or put simply, worry about the unknown. The stress-related chemical reactions that I'm talking about cause what in layman's terms is known as the fight or flight response, and this is hardwired into our brains and born out of the fear we once had for being eaten by saber-toothed tigers or whatever, or let's face it, other bad humans who once upon a time wanted to harm us. They are the remnants of an instinct designed to protect us from bodily harm when we are under some kind of threat in our lives. Let's face it, I could go on all day about the symptoms, but if you are a living, breathing human being, especially one that has an interest in this topic, then I will hazard a guess that you are very much aware of what stress is. But don't worry though, as ever, there are solutions to our problems. I've done a lot of research on this, and I've also delved back into the notes I have from the 6-week stress control class that I took part in, and the advice that I've derived from that experience, etc., is as follows. 30 ways to deal with stress. 1. Deal with problems on the spot. Don't bottle up your feelings. Use techniques like the 5-second rule and perhaps more appropriately the 2-minute rule to ensure that your troubles don't build up and cause you more and more stress as time goes on. This is something else I went into in the anxiety episode. If you constantly ignore a lot of small troubles, they will become a big problem and you're going to have trouble dealing with it. Whereas if you just knock away these little things as they come in, phone calls, quick email responses, quick cleanups, etc., then they don't become part of a larger list which is going to worry you and stress you out. Number 2, strong, confiding relationships. Today's lesson was partly compiled by Megan Riley, who points out that talking to someone can help relieve some of the frustration you have on your mind, and that talking to someone you don't know might help instead of talking to someone you do know. It all depends on your comfort areas. And I'll add to this that if someone you're close to is stressed, there are lots of practical things that you can do to support them, even though you probably can't change the situation that they're in. I'm going to link in the show notes to a document that you can download from mind.co.uk, which gives a lot of advice on stress. But the section relating to this confiding relationships part is very, very good. It suggests that as a relative or friend that you can help someone to reflect on whether they are stressed by just listening to them, reassuring them that stressful situations will pass. This too shall pass is a very common thing I say to myself. And you can help them to identify their triggers and address the causes of stress and help them to practice some relaxation techniques as well. You might find that they're not that keen on you offering help. They might actually have shutters down, but they might just hear a little bit about what you're saying. It's a very short but useful PDF that I'm talking about, but look out for it in the show notes for more information. The third thing that my notes suggest when feeling stressed is that you slow down. If you don't get as much done as you'd like, it's really not a big deal. There is always going to be another day. This is something I've been struggling with lately as I've had a bit of a motivation loss. Well, I'm saying lately, pre-COVID-19. Prior to that, the weeks leading up to this when I was working on this podcast, I was working up season 4 and I had a lot of trouble with motivation. And it certainly made me a lot more stressed. It's good to recognise, though, if you slow down and miss a few self-set deadlines, it's not the end of the world. It's no great terrible story, put it in perspective. And along with this, I'd say try and get some sleep, because that is a very common problem when you're stressed, that you start to have problems with your sleep cycle. Could your physical or mental health be impacting your ability to sleep? Could you amend your environment to help to improve your sleep? Like I talked about earlier, I put the phone in another room so that I'm not feeding my brain with information right up to the point where I try to rest. What I do have is a Kindle with just a normal fiction book that takes my mind out of what I've been doing during the day. And I only use the Kindle because it's backlit and I don't have to have a light on it. It's easy on my eyes and it helps me to wind down. Could you make small changes to your lifestyle to help you get a restful sleep? I'll link in the show notes to an article that I found. It's from mentalhealth.org.uk, and it's 10 top tips for a good sleep, so you can go and check that one out. But think about these things. Number 4, one thing at a time. Don't overload your system. Don't try to keep too many balls in the air at the one time. And I no longer multitask because I just continually found it frustrating. And I use this method every day now to get things done one thing at a time. It's true that putting one thing off to do another can make you feel a little bit stressed, but the payoff of ticking off tasks much quicker is worth it. If I was doing 10 things at the one time and never really getting anywhere, my resolve to complete them would wear away and wear away and wear away. Whereas doing one thing, yes, at the cost of not doing a few others, and then ticking that one off gives me a little boost. It's the productivity cycle I've talked about in the past, where if you don't give yourself a little bit of a pat in the back, a congratulation for what you have achieved, it makes it more difficult to continue. If you're doing 10 things simultaneously, that's going to be on your mind. It's going to be worrying you. It's going to be stressing you out, and you're going to be remembering a lot more stuff, and you're not going to have the satisfaction of ticking things off that list as often as you would like. So try and do one thing at a time. It will help with your stress levels. Trust me. Another thing is musts and shoulds. Work out what you can cope with and be happy with that. Don't get mixed up. Don't say, I must do this. I have to do this. If I don't do this, it's the end of the world. Rewrite that in your head to, I should do this. I should do this. But I don't have to do this. Number 6 on my list is coping with ruts. R-U-T-S, ruts. Plan weekends. Do something different. Go for a drive. Go for a long walk. Take up new hobbies. This is yet another thing that's been on my mind recently, and I keep thinking of this quote by Stephen Covey: to achieve goals you've never achieved before, you need to start doing things you've never done before. So change things up, be flexible, and don't get stuck in a rut. Number 7 is divide your problems up. I quite often use this as a productivity technique to make things a sum of their parts. It's actually probably my most favourite technique for making my life easy. Split things up and more easily tackle large or complex tasks rather than worrying about the whole thing being insurmountable. What's that Tim Ferriss quote? Don't confuse the complex with the difficult is one thing. He says most situations are simple, many are just emotionally difficult to act upon. But even if it's complex, even if it's difficult, you can just take things a little bit at a time. And it's kind of like the little achievements thing I was talking about a second ago. By achieving little things, you will feel less stressed about moving forward with things. And that's just by using this, making things a sum of their parts. Anything's big, anything's complex, break it down into smaller parts, and your life will, I guarantee it, get easier. Number 8, past experience. Learn from your mistakes. How did you deal with this problem the last time? Think about it, engage that high-level thinking I keep talking about. Number 9, eating. Over the long term, try to eat more healthy foods. Stay away from fried and fatty foods. Cut down on the salt. Eat more fruit, veg, and whole wheat bread. And another thing, comfort eating, don't eat too much. Number 10, look and sound relaxed. Try to look calm and relaxed. If you try to embody it, it might actually help you to genuinely relax. Fake it till you make it. A little bit of that, I think, is in there. But just because we are in a stressful situation doesn't mean that we have to get stressed out. You may be in the storm. The key is, don't let the storm get in you. And that's a Joel Osteen quote. Number 11, don't accept other people's targets. Discuss them, and if you can't agree, say no. So if you're getting led down a path by someone who's constantly pressuring you, and I've worked with people like this, and they're, I'm going to say, unpleasant people to be around, but if you're stuck with a boss like this, then try and discuss things, negotiate, and remember that, episode 2 of this show, no is a great solution to a lot of stress. Do not get yourself a pile of additional things to do or commitments if you don't actually want to do them, or if you don't have the time or the mental energy to deal with them as well. No is a great ally, possibly the very first ally that you've got in the battle against stress. Smoking is the 12th thing on my list. If you're smoking, try and cut back. Try and be aware if you're smoking more, etc. If you're a smoker, you'll possibly know that it's not a good thing. So, yeah, that adds to your stress levels as well. Number 13, situations beyond your control. Stop hitting your head off the brick wall unless you feel that wall can come down. Bryan Cranston once said something about this. He said, I learned long ago to focus on things you can control and don't even pay attention to things that you don't. That's, again, another life rule that I work through. This, say I'm recording this during the COVID-19 situation, I can't control it. I can control my environment. I can control a few things. These are the things that I worry about. I put time onto it and I fix them. If I've got a bulb goes out in the bathroom, I can go up and change the bulb. That's the things that I can control. They are the things I worry about. If I've got an email to respond to, I'll worry about that. But I'm not going to worry about the fact that this is going on in the outside world. And I've not read enough of it to talk knowledgeably about it. I mentioned it briefly, I think, in the discussion I had the other day with D. Blakely, that one. I do remember you, D. Sorry about that. And it's about Stoicism. And the Stoics, from what I know so far, would say something along the lines of, understand that there are difficult people in the world, and people who lie, and people who are rude, and people who steal. And really understand that, so that when you meet somebody who is difficult or rude or who steals from you, you don't take the emotional hits so badly. You know that it's happened. You knew that it was on the cards at some point. It kind of just makes life easier to deal with, this Stoicism thing. I will probably do a show in future about Stoicism. I think it's very, very interesting. And if you're suffering badly from stress, I would say this is something you want to look at too. Number 14 on the list is build relaxation into your life. Put time aside just for you. Take a walk. I'm forced to do walks at the moment. 1 a day is the quota. But take a walk, phone a friend, read a book, watch TV, and don't feel guilty about it if you've got other stuff to do that's work-related. The TV can help you to unwind, or listen to some music. And my suggestion, which is not on the list, is get a dog. Get a dog. Dogs are awesome. Angus is awesome. Yeah, he smells a bit sometimes, and he drools everywhere. But that is the Angus I'm talking about, not me. But get a dog. Honestly, I work in the industry. You pay for a dog walker. If you're getting paid a decent wage to go in and shoot something, you probably can afford 15, 20 quid to have somebody doggy daycare your dog for the day or whatever. It's really would improve your life. Just chucking that in there. Wasn't really on the list. But anyway, number 15, prioritize. Another one that I've done a show on. Decide what can be done and what can wait, and keep revising your list of things. And I've got a couple of suggestions on how you do this. One is called the focus funnel. Go back and listen to the prioritizing show, though. This is about making your life easier, and I've done a whole show on it. But there's one called the focus funnel in that, where you funnel down the stuff that's not important, and eventually it brings to the stuff that is important. And there's another thing called the Eisenhower matrix, which forces you to split your tasks, what you've got on your list, down into important, unimportant, urgent, and not urgent, and that helps you to get to the stuff that really matters. Some stuff that's important is not urgent. Some stuff that's urgent is not important. By prioritizing, you will make your life easier. If you find yourself procrastinating doing a whole lot of stuff that doesn't really matter, it could lead to a situation where you get majorly stressed out about something you didn't deal with, but you probably should have. Number 16, do the worst things first. If you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugliest one first. Brian Tracy, unquote. And this is another way of saying that if you've got 2 important tasks before you, start with the biggest, hardest, and most important task first. Kind of what I was saying in the prioritising one there. If you eat that frog, do the difficult one first. You're going to feel a lot better about tackling the smaller tasks that come afterwards, or the less important ones. Number 17, don't try to be Superman or Supergirl, for that matter. Live with your faults. The world will be there long after you have gone, so don't try to be perfect. None of us are anyway, but try and avoid that perfectionism mindset. Yet again, I've done a show on perfectionism. If you've got a mindset like that and you're constantly trying to be perfect, you will constantly live with disappointment. Go back and check out, please, the perfectionism episode. It's really, really important that you get on top of that. I think that was probably in season 1. I should probably have written down the episodes that are relevant as I was preparing this list, but I didn't. I'll put them in the show notes. Number 18, confide in others. I mentioned it earlier. Seek out who you can trust and let them know how you feel. They might be able to see ways out of problems that you can't because you're too close to it as well. Now, again, I mentioned it earlier. There's a document from Mind. I've forgotten already. I need to look back to my notes. Where's my notes? Mind.co.uk. It's that PDF I was talking about, and it will help you with this one. And it will help you to help others with this one as well. Number 19 in my list, other people's shoes. What advice would you give someone else if they were in your shoes? And this is a good headspace to get into, a good mindset. If you're having trouble, something's stressing you out, think what advice you would give someone else and take it. Quite often, we've got plenty of advice for other people, but we're almost like emotionally omitting our own problems. So try and engage again that high level of thinking and engage in your own problems. You don't have to worry every day about them or all day about them. You can do that thing I suggested in the anxiety episode and I've probably got it on this list somewhere. Set a time aside, 15 minutes a day to do your worrying in that phase and try and come up with solutions to your problems rather than to solve a whole load of other people's. I'm jumping back in here. I'm going to put in an insert. I've now done the whole episode and I'm coming back because I didn't actually talk about worry time in this episode. I did talk about it in the anxiety one, but just in case you've not heard that show, worry time is when you put 15 minutes aside each day just to worry. And it means that you don't spend the whole day worrying about stuff that might come up. You know, it's kind of helps prove the quote, worrying about tomorrow just robs today of its joy or its life or whatever you would like to call it, you know. So worrying and sorting out your problems within a set amount of time will allow you a certain degree of freedom out with that time to just get on with your life and your work, etc. So consider some worry time. Consider doing a brain dump when you're in that worry time where you just write down, you get everything that's on your mind down onto paper, and when you see it in front of you, you might find that a few of the things you've been worrying about aren't worth worrying about at all. Number 20, keep a structure to each day. Build routine into your life. Try to get out of the house as part of that structure, to go for a paper, to get washed, dressed, have your breakfast, and try and eat at the usual times, and try to see people, and also try and go to your bed at a reasonable hour. I'm in lockdown at the moment, and I've got a structure to my day. I am up and I'm sitting working. Unless I've slept not so well, but I'm working at 9 o'clock. I'm sitting at my desk. I've had my breakfast, and I'm sitting down to work on this show specifically. But that just helps me keep my head together and helps me drive forward. If I didn't have that routine, I think I'd be in a bit of trouble. Number 21, tablets for stress. I never found tablets to be particularly helpful, but you can speak to your doctor, and there are pharmaceutical options for you if you are suffering from stress, and it is an option you can consider. Don't let your pride get in the way. Don't be afraid to speak to a professional if stress is bringing you down, or if you think stress is bringing you down. You know, go and speak to a professional. Number 22, kiss it goodbye. Say goodbye to work when you've finished and get into your life mode. Try not to bring your work home with you at night. It's a difficult one for actors. It's a difficult one for creatives working in the film industry specifically, or in theatre, because I know that at night time you're looking up lines or you're planning shots for the next day, etc. And I'm sure that there are similarities in other industries and other freelancing worlds, but try and maybe set aside a time limit for how much of your home time is going to be spent prepping for the next day would be my suggestion. Number 23 on the list is to avoid caffeine. This is something that never occurred to me till I went to these classes, because caffeine and stress can both elevate the cortisol levels, and high amounts of caffeine can lead to the negative health effects associated with prolonged elevated levels of cortisol. Try and avoid any drinks with caffeine to lessen the impact of the stress that you're feeling. And caffeine is hidden in a lot of things, I have to say. Caffeine is in soft drinks. It's not just in coffee either. It's in tea. It is there as well. So you might want to look at some caffeine-free options. And immediately I can hear some of you go, no, I can't. I need my caffeine to keep me going, Consider what I'm saying here. Don't just immediately dismiss this. You could have your 2 cups of coffee in the morning that have got caffeine in them, but later on in the day you could go for decaffeinated coffee. Don't lean on it so heavily that you need it to get through your day, because that will build your stress levels. Listen to what I'm saying here. And also, caffeine is hidden in things like paracetamol and things like that. Fast-acting paracetamol will probably be getting into your bloodstream via a piggyback that it's doing onto the back of caffeine that's also in those pills. So please be aware of that. But I will add that small to moderate amounts of caffeine can lift your mood and also give you a boost. So if you're feeling down, maybe a proper cup of coffee might help you along. Just try and be aware of it. 24 on the list is avoid alcohol and other drugs, which can make you paranoid about the things that you never thought that you would be worried about. Alcohol is a depressant and can lead to you being unable to focus on the important things in life, leaving you in a mire of irrelevancies that get you all worked up and stressed out. Number 25 is, and I got this from my research, which suggested that you keep a stress diary. And I can kind of see the value of this, because as you write down everything you're feeling in your moments of stress, it will get it off your chest. Then in the future, if you like, you can look back at it and actually reflect on the actions that you took at that time, so that you know how to cope with certain similar situations. For example, how to be more confident in a job interview for the future if you were nervous and stressed out before. You can also write in a journal if you don't feel like speaking to friends or professionals about your experiences. Megan, who helped me with this episode, and I'll talk about that, that's all about delegation. That's going to come in a later episode, but she says on this subject, I write in a journal to help me think in certain situations that I face in my life that I don't understand. From writing it down in my journal, I can then stop, think and react in the most sensible and adult way. Mostly when I write in my journal, I tend to get things off my chest that are frustrating me or making me nervous. Sometimes I look back in my journal when I'm stuck in certain situations that I'd been in before. After that, I reflect and learn, unquote. Number 26 is exercise. This can help relieve stress and allows you to release frustration and anger. It can also help you break out of the rut that you find yourself in. Going for a jog or walking the dog, which I can vouch for, will help to relieve that stress. Even listening to music can help release stress as you do these things, as it eases the mind. Exercise is really important to me. It's therapeutic. So if I'm ever feeling tense or stressed or like I'm about to have a meltdown, I'll put on my iPod and head to the gym or out on a bike ride along Lake Michigan with the girls. Michelle Obama, unquote. Number 27 is sugar, because you can also manage your stress by avoiding or reducing your intake of sugars. Too much sugar, refined sugar, can cause energy crashes, sugar crashes, and this can lead to you feeling tired and irritable. And the nutritionist that I saw in December that put me onto a few intolerances that I have also points out that sugar has no nutritional value, but it tastes so good. I feel like Homer Simpson when I talk about this. But yes, although it tastes so good, and you might have a comfort eating addiction with it along with that, be aware that sugar is problematic when it comes to stress. Number 28, I'd just add that you should just eat properly, because having a well-balanced and nutritious diet can not only help you to relieve your stress, but can make you feel healthier and more positive in the future. And again, I'll reflect on that on the back of what I found out. I found out I had intolerances to certain foods. I've been much more careful about what I've eaten in the last few months, and I feel massively better. This is going to be an episode that I'll do in the future, because it's almost unbelievable how much better I feel now than I felt before I stopped eating certain things. 29, therapy. And again, I've talked about this before, and it's not only something which we shouldn't be embarrassed by, but it's a lot more affordable than you might imagine it to be as well. And it's incredibly helpful if you are lost or locked up due to stress. When it comes to speaking to health professionals, it might be difficult at first, but it just takes a bit of time. If you've got patience with the treatment that you're getting given, then it will work. And another option might be for you to join a group therapy class, which you could find. Look in your local, I was going to say papers there, but let's face it, we'll be looking online for this sort of thing. But there might be a class out there about stress, like the one that I attended, where you can talk through your problems with others. Just after I had my breakdown, the NHS, I know they're getting lauded at the moment, but absolutely atrocious for mental health related stuff. I just found someone online and got 3 sessions with them, and it was just talking therapy. All I really did for those 3 sessions was talk to the guy, and it was very affordable, and it helped me get my head in the right space. I cannot recommend it enough. It's really worthwhile. I think those first 3 sessions were like 30 quid each or something like that. Is it too much? Is it really? I don't think it is, if it makes you feel a lot better. And it made me feel a lot better. Finally, number 30, calming breathing exercises, self-hypnosis and meditation have been scientifically proven to help alleviate stress after just 8 weeks of regular practice. Numerous studies have shown that meditation is an effective stress management tool, ultimately reprogramming your brain to the extent that meditators end up with more capacity to manage stress. I was going to say I will link to a page about this. I've just realised I've done an episode about it already. Episode 56 supports episode 57, which is the anxiety one. And it's just got some relaxation sounds on it. It's got waves crashing against the shore, and it's got distant thunder and rain in a tropical environment. And they're 30 minutes or 25 minutes each, I think, of those. And they can be used to help get you into state. Music could do it as well. There's plenty of information online, but I will link in the show notes to something else. It's an NHS document, and it's actually not a document specifically. It's a web page on the NHS site about stress and anxiety and depression in their mood zone, and it's mental well-being audio guides, and it's a series of other sounds. I've also got one other sound, which is gentle lapping against I think a lake shore it is. I might add it on to the very, very end of this, just to be of use to you there as well. Actually, these things, I definitely found them to be useful in calming me down and helping me to relax. So, might sound a little bit hippy-dippy, but definitely worth your time. In life, try to keep things in perspective. And remember that having a bad day is a universal human experience. It really is not the world acting against you. You might sometimes make yourself believe that or try to believe it, but it's just not true. And when your inner critic, or indeed any outer critic, finds faults or winds you up, try and find truth and exception to what is being said. Try and see through it. Try and understand the truth instead of believing some falsity. And if you stumble or feel you have failed in some way, don't beat yourself up about it as well. Nobody's perfect. Act as if you were your own best friend and be kind and supportive. And as I keep saying, part of the cycle of productivity is just take a few minutes each day to appreciate yourself and to congratulate yourself on your successes. Even in a day where you feel that nothing has gone right, I would put money down that you have succeeded in doing a number of other things as well. And that's all part of the perspective that I mentioned a second ago. Stress is a natural reaction to many situations in life, such as work, family, relationships, and money problems. And a moderate amount of stress can help us perform better in challenging situations. But it is important that we manage our stress and keep it at a healthy level to prevent long-term damage to our bodies and our minds. Your call to action today is to go for a walk. Yes, you heard me. Just get out there and go for a walk. And if you're still in lockdown due to COVID-19 and the regulations are still the same, then this is going to be quite easy, as you only get one walk a day. But once life returns to a degree of normality, this habit might start to fall away. Stay on top of it and enjoy it. Walking frequently reduces the incidence of the stress-related conditions that I've mentioned before, including cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure and cholesterol, and type 2 diabetes. I noticed in my research that people who regularly walk report reduced stress levels. Not only that, but their self-confidence increases as well. And this just comes from taking an active role in your own well-being. It releases tension from the major muscle groups, deepens the breathing and quietens the nervous system, and it gets us into nature, which is relaxing and stress-relieving in itself. According to Everyday Health, 5 or 6 30-minute walks a week are usually recommended to maintain health and stress management. One tip I'd say to get into this habit is to just tell yourself that you're walking to the first lamppost and your street and back, and this will help you to combat your own laziness, as the chances are that when you get there you might just keep going. And remember that you're walking for fun. You don't need to rush things. If you recognise these symptoms of stress in yourself, I hope that you can find the courage and the energy to take some of the steps that I've recommended here to reduce it. 8 years ago, I found myself in a stress-related breakdown, confused, lost, and questioning my perception of reality in a way that is reminiscent of the Truman Show. At that point, I hadn't had a holiday in 18 years. I'd just worked and worked and worked. Looking back, it isn't any wonder that I found myself in that place. If you already think that you're heading in the direction that I ended up in, don't be afraid to just slow down and relax right now. Relaxation is actually a skill that needs to be learned, and it will improve with practice. You've possibly forgotten what it is like to relax. Engage that higher level thinking that I keep talking about, where you work on your life and career at the same time that you're living and working in it. Slow down, stop, take a minute, consider things, and teach yourself to relax. Tell yourself as well that it's okay to prioritize your own self-care, and try to rewrite those thoughts of I can't into thoughts of I can. And I mentioned that rewriting, as sometimes when I'm giving advice to people, they're immediately shutting me down, because they're so caught up in the stress that they just can't accept any new ideas. If you feel yourself in this situation, if you're listening to this show to try and deal with it, then try and change those thoughts of I can't into I can. You can do it. Next week, I'm going to be interviewing another podcaster. I'm very pleased to say that I'm going to have Julian Koski from the Productivity Matters podcast on the show. I've already done the interview, actually, and we discussed 10 awesome apps to make you more productive. And Julian is an awesome guy with a lot of knowledge in this area, as his show for a long time focused on just productivity apps. He covers more broader topics than that, but he is an expert in this area, and he also looked at how they can be used to make your life and work simpler and more efficient and possibly less stressful as well. So that's going to be next week's show. We're back onto the regular schedule, which is shows going out on Sundays at 7 p.m. And I'm not sure in this season if I'm going to do another 4 episodes or I'm going to do another 6 episodes. We're just going to have to wait and see, okay? Just before I wind things up, folks, there's 2 episodes of the show for Season 4 still seeking sponsors. So if you'd like to support the show in that way, it's £25 an episode, and it fits into the wording along the lines of this episode is sponsored by your wording here. We don't really want to have some sort of soliloquy for me to say at that point, but you can get about 10 words in, and maybe 12. We'll see how it goes. And you can get your name at the start of the show, your business name or whatever, and that really helps me out because that money goes specifically towards promotion. And at the moment, as these shows are going out, I'm spending a lot of money trying to get promotion that actually works for it and gets more listeners. That's the focus of what I'm doing when I'm off air during the 6 weeks that the second half of Season 4 is going out. So if you can help out, please get in touch. And also, if you want to get in touch, if you've got a problem, I'm planning to do, probably as an in-between episode, another mailbag episode. And the last time I put an appeal out, I actually had enough questions for 2 mailbag episodes, both of which have got a big number of downloads, so both were very popular. But I've put this appeal out a couple of times now, and I've had absolutely no questions from people. This show is obviously about productivity and success. It covers some degree of mental health. If you're a listener, you'll know the stuff that I'm talking about. And the thing is, when you send in a problem that you've got, and I try to respond to it, you've got to realise that it's not just your problem. The chances are that there's a load of other people out there that might be facing the same thing, and your problem and the solution to it might help other people. So if you've got something for the mailbag show, send an email to filmproproductivity@gmail.com with the words mailbag episode in the subject line. I'll end now with these wise words from Lily Tomlin, who said, "For fast-acting relief, try slowing down." Now take control of your own destiny. Don't get too stressed out. Keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success. Today's show was researched and partially scripted in collaboration with Megan Riley. The music that you're listening to right now is Adventures by Ihimitsu. You can view the show notes for this episode on the official website, filmproproductivity.com. You can follow my personal account on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director, or follow the show on Twitter. Twitter's really where it's happening, at FilmProProdPod, or on Facebook at FilmProProductivity. Please support the show by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review.